Hello, everybody. Welcome to Armchair Expert. I'm Dax Shepard. I'm joined with Monica Padman.
Hi.
Hi. Today we have Sophia Bush. You probably fell in love with her on One Tree Hill and then carried that straight on over to Chicago PD. And now she's in the attic. Talk about life on planet Earth. So please enjoy Sophia Bush.
He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert.
The last one we were listening to is when you guys interviewed Ike Barinholtz.
Oh my God, how
And
funny
the
is
end of the
that?
episode takes like such a weird turn.
Which part?
You got into talking about like having an uncontrollable erection because of a scooter you found in your garage.
Oh, yeah,
when you
yeah,
were
yeah.
little.
12.
And I was like, this isn't where I thought that this hour was going to go at all, but I'm here for it. Okay. In
Monica,
relation to the Olympian or
there's an anomalous number of Olympians who seem to get aroused during the medal ceremony because
They
there's
get engorged.
there's
yeah.
there's pictures.
word is
Engorged.
so intense.
Yeah,
I like
well,
it. I think
it's kind of an onomatopoeia.
engorged.
There's something about it that sounds like what it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure,
You
sure,
know?
sure.
It gives me the little like
yeah,
in the back of the teeth where I'm like,
moist.
ooh, yeah, that one I can't.
Yeah,
I have a few of those words. For me, panties is one. I can't stand the word panties.
I hate that word.
Even though
you're
you
good.
use
Yeah,
it
that's not
sometimes.
a.
What's that? Well, I use it for men.
Yeah,
I
panty.
always call male panties male panties.
You've
Yeah.
also said panty dropper.
I know, I have said that. I do use the word panty dropper occasionally. And I'm almost always saying it ironically. Like, I'll say, like, we're going to the sand dunes tomorrow. And my sand car does wheelies. I'll say, like, oh, that thing, if I do a wheelie, that's a panty dropper. Now, I'm very in on the joke. No girl on planet Earth cares if I do a wheelie.
you do.
Yes, and in my mind, I've convinced myself that it is some kind of an aphrodisiac when it's just not. I mean, for a small sector.
Sure, I would say it's a small sector. It's a niche market.
Uh-huh. Do you suffer from that at all? Have you ever, like, really been convinced your boyfriend, like, he loves that I cook, you know, a Sunday dinner or whatever, and come to find out he was just getting through it?
I don't know. I think I'm at the point where I'm pretty willing to look at my own shit because everybody has it. Like, everybody has things about them that are probably a lot.
Yeah.
I make no mistakes that the things that might be frustrating about me to a partner are frustrating.
Okay.
You know, nobody likes that I am so hyper focused on the news that I take my phone everywhere. I'm reading news articles while doing other things that you think would need focus, but I can't.
Is that why you fell down?
Actually, the irony is that
Backstory. Let me just bring everyone up to
Oh, yeah.
speed. You arrived and you had a limp. You had a visible limp, and you were in quite a bit of pain, and that's because you had an accident.
oh yeah, I took such a spill at home, and the irony is that I wasn't doing anything. I had this little jacket over one arm and my bag over the other. I had my phone in the hand that had the jacket sort of over the arm, but it wasn't open.
Okay.
And I had an iced tea in my right hand.
Go on.
And I was walking out of the house saying goodbye to Jenny, my best friend who lives with me. And I was like, okay, I'll see you later. And I just, when I tell you that I ate shit, it was like I took a step with my right foot. It went across my body to the left, like I was doing a high kick, but I wasn't. And I fell in such a way that I landed on my right knee. My right elbow went into a box that was on the floor, which is now fully collapsed and crushed because all of my weight fell onto it also. But I managed to not spill the iced tea.
But a very happy accident was that there was a collapsible box in your landing zone, which is, for people not on the inside of showbiz, that is what stuntmen are jumping off buildings into and jumping cars into, is a big pile of boxes.
That box probably saved my elbow and this interview.
Yeah. You know,
Muscle.
it does make
Right.
me think of one of the funniest injuries I've ever heard is my buddy Tim Lovestead, who used to be a cashier at Vaughn's. He was just standing there ringing people up, and out of nowhere he was like, "Oh!" and blew his ACL just
What?
standing still,
No.
ringing up groceries.
It just snapped.
Blew an ACL. He's like, it couldn't have been a more embarrassing. He was like standing, he was talking to somebody, he was ringing shit up, and then he was collapsed on the ground screaming,
No.
and nothing had happened. That's a
Is
bummer of a way.
embarrassing. You want to be like throwing a football
Yeah.
at the Super Bowl.
You want your injury to be kind of sexy, so you have a
Yeah.
story.
Yes. And again, and this will be the last time I hijack your interview. My best friend, Aaron Weekly, I called in this radio station and won him a trip to Tigers fantasy camp in Florida. Tigers, the baseball team.
Just
And,
checking.
and he got down there, and the speech at the beginning was, listen, everybody, we want you to start slow and then back it down from there. Because everyone at fantasy camp is in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they're going to play with real life tigers.
Right.
And sure enough, Aaron said he saw like 3 or 4 guys blow ACLs just running to second base. They haven't probably sprinted in 20 years,
Sure.
but they're there and they're excited and they have the uniform
Well, you
on.
have the adrenaline, so you don't realize your body is screaming no.
Yes,
While your little inner child brain is screaming yes.
Yes. He said he saw a guy rounding second and he just collapsed dead, Not dead.
actually-
No.
oh my
Yeah,
God,
yeah.
the story took a turn.
I thought we
They
were
lost
really
3
gonna-
guys at fantasy camp is where the story's going down.
Wow.
Now, something interesting that I learned about you today, and I want to know if this is one of these things, because as actors, we sometimes end up putting things, granted, this is a long time ago where you put stuff under your special skills. Remember that part of your biography?
No.
Your resume.
Yeah.
On the back of a headshot, you'd like, I can pirouette, or I do gymnastics.
It was always like your old, been around the block manager, your first manager who was like, you've been to a dance class, you're a ballerina. And you're like, well, that feels like a stretch. Okay.
You're so right. But mine was just littered with lies. I could fence. I had combat training. In 5 plays I never was in.
Okay.
But it said that you do your own stunt driving.
I do. That I do.
That you do. And where
Yeah.
did that begin?
I don't know what it is because I'm not particularly a fan of watching car races. It bores me. But something about loving, and maybe it was the romantic idea of car racing, really got me into, as I started being a working actor and seeing how the stunt departments all worked, into wanting to do that. And I had this badass stunt coordinator named Mike Owens on this movie I shot out in Texas and New Mexico, who's the guy, I want to say he coordinated the driving on the Italian Job. He does really hardcore shit.
Right.
And, had choppers coming in to do stunts and all kinds of, I was just like my little inner tomboy was like, this is the coolest shit ever.
Yeah.
And so I started asking to learn stuff from Mike and then worked on a cop show in Chicago.
What do you mean worked? You're not still working on that?
No, I quit my job, bro.
You did?
I'll tell you all about it.
Oh my goodness.
But I was working on this show and my stunt coordinator was like, oh, you're actually a really good driver. He sort of took a notice of how excited I get about all that stuff. And then he started letting me do more and more of the things, we were doing near misses and 70-mile-an-hour chases with, the blacked out SUV that has the crane camera on it and they were just like, okay, so you're on the stunt team, great. And then an actor who I adore, who wasn't trying to be funny, but is very comedic, who was on that show with me, who shall remain nameless because he'll be very angry if anyone knows that he did it, got into an accident on set, literally going 5 miles an hour. And I was like, bro, I'm doing stunt sequences with near misses with 6 stunt drivers, and you had to pull into a parking lot and you couldn't do that? So then they put the kibosh on any of us driving anymore. And I was like, the highlight of this job for me is driving and doing all of this. So slowly but surely, Tom would be like, don't tell anybody, we're going to let you do a take.
So you grew up in Pasadena, which is very weird to me.
Well, I grew up
LA
proper. My parents' first house was on 5th Street right off Sweetser.
Oh, okay. That's Hollywood, right? Is that Hollywood?
I guess
or Mid-Wilshire, do they call that now?
Maybe. It was just very cute, generic little...
World War II bungalows?
Yeah, like sort of 1930s, cute, tiny houses. And I remember I had this neighbor, Lillian, who lived across the street, who was this old woman who was retired, and she made dollhouse furniture.
Oh, wow.
She was fascinating, and I would hang with her, and her daughter collected vintage clothes, and she wound up starting this very wildly successful store that then became the place that lends collectible vintage to movies and super, super famous people.
And both parents were into photography in one way or another?
Yeah, my dad's a photographer.
And did mom run a studio of some
She ran
type?
his studio for a while. So when they met, my parents met because they lived in the same apartment building in Mid-Wilshire, right off La Brea and 6th. And my mom had this giant Doberman named Bouncer. And Bouncer would always try to bite my dad.
Okay.
And Bouncer was like the most wildly well-behaved dog. You could say anything to him and he would listen to you. And he would always growl and nip at my dad. And my mom was like, I'm so sorry. He doesn't have a problem with anybody. I don't know why he doesn't like you. And I think Bouncer was like, get out of here, man.
Bouncer knew he was going to be replaced by your father.
But the
on
irony
some level.
is that my mother didn't. My mother grew up like super Italian family in Jersey. And she's like, I moved to LA. She's like, here's this photographer wearing tight pants. He flips his hair. I just figured he was gay.
Okay.
I figured we were going to be friends. Like
She was like the female Karate Kid.
Yeah.
Isn't that the story of Karate Kid? New Jersey Italians moved to the
Yes.
Valley and all hell breaks loose. Yeah, the Manch.
Yeah, so my mom like thought my dad just was being nice. And my dad was like, I was in love with you.
Oh, wow. You and Bella are so similar. So
I
even,
was just thinking that.
yeah,
I was literally just thinking that.
in preparation of talking to you, you and Kristen are friends. You've been friends for, I don't know, a decade now or something, a long time.
Your wife's a badass.
And you guys are pretty damn similar. I don't want to take anything away from your originality or hers, but I will say you seem to be almost carbon copies of one another.
I love that. People say that. And here's what's interesting is like, Belle's one of those people that I've known and I see you guys at stuff and so many of those things we have to go to are so weird. And like when I see you guys in a room, I'm like, yes, other sane people I can hide in the corner with. But I don't get to really hang with her because I never really am here. And so she's one of those people who I'm like, we are friends who never see each other.
Right.
But like from a distance, we're always slow clapping each other's stuff and whatever.
And as someone who's in the eye of her storm, I can tell you it's no comment on her desire to be friends with you. I don't know that she has 30 seconds to add to anything. She's
No way.
just quadruple booked all day, every day.
Yeah,
And that's
same.
just, yeah.
And there's something I think when you work in the world the way that we do as women who also have all the other things that ladies are saddled with, it's like you know, there seems to be this, I don't know, just like this assumption that we're meant to do everything and be everywhere and service everything and support all the things. And it feels like a lot. And I can't imagine, you guys have a family. Like I get overwhelmed having dogs, which might also be because I'm single, so I don't have somebody splitting responsibilities with me.
Sure.
But it feels like
You need a houseboy like me. You need someone that's there, like, just managing shit.
cool.
But I want to ask you, so you're very, very philanthropic. If people don't know that, you're involved in 87 different charities and movements and all kinds of things. And it sounds like you feel like you're answering a call that you're expected to answer.
No.
Oh, okay. So it's not that your womanness is the motivating force behind all that activity, or is it?
What do you mean by that?
Well, you said as women we're expected to go and...
Well, I think we're just expected to be all things for all people all of the time.
Okay.
So as a woman, and I notice this because as we're talking about our group of friends, we have an incredible community that is really invested in each other and supportive of each other and willing to have big, deep conversations and shows up for each other. So there's a lot of analysis of the world that happens around the dinner table and that happens in real time in workspaces and whatever. And it's just in the minutia, when we think about macroaggressions to microaggressions, for example, that women are on the receiving end of. A man who in our kind of workplace stands up and says, like, this is unacceptable, the way this is going, whatever, example X, stands up for the coworkers and the crew. People go, oh, he's a stupendous badass, and he's very firm. I hear that men are very firm a lot. And women, when we do that,
You're a
get called
bitch.
bitches. People make flippant jokes about, like, are you on your period? We get called difficult. And what we're on the receiving end of is different. We're supposed to go in and be the star of a show and everyone's favorite person and unbelievably, nice, to bend over backwards for everybody in the room to the point that your own spine breaks. And if you complain that your back is broken, you're an asshole. And so
Well, now I'm going to suggest something very provocative that I'll regret. But I'm just now hearing you say that, and I want to think all of it through. So that's 100% true. I completely agree with you. And I've been on shows where there is a powerful, dynamic woman who's not afraid to speak up. And then I've heard people call her that. And that's true. I totally agree with you. But don't you think somewhere in this recipe is also the fact that you would care that people would call you a bitch? Because a guy would go, no, this is a total waste of time. We're not doing this. No one will go home on time. We're going to do this, right? And now I've been that person, and I actually think, well, some people are going to think I'm a dick. And then I go, that's okay. I'm okay. I can live with, like, do you think maybe there's also a secondary layer where we men are maybe, and of course societally, I don't think biologically, maybe we're a little less codependent in that way, that we're not as concerned if people are saying that.
Sure, I see what you're saying.
Okay.
And then to raise it another point further, if I may.
Sure.
One of the things I think is interesting about that is whether you're codependent or not. I mean, you go back into sort of psychology, and as many of us have, when you've invested deeply in your own mental health, you understand, like, was I a child who formed insecure or secure attachments? What was my home life like? What trauma do I carry? That to me, speaks more clinically to whether or not you operate as a codependent person. But what I think the difference is you as a man, and I'm guessing here, but it's a theory. If someone on set says, he's really a dick, you're like, yeah, I don't care. I know I'm doing the right thing. For me as a woman, if somebody says, well, she's really a bitch, I also don't care. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to say to my producers, for example, when we're shooting in below freezing temperatures and 6 of our PAs have pneumonia and they don't care, I'm going to raise hell about it. And I have, and I never will not do that.
Right.
But the difference is men are societally sort of idolized for strength and for being dicks and for being bossy. But if women are bossy, they're shrews, they're cunts, they're horrible. Nobody wants to be around them. Why won't they just kiss the ring? There's a different set of ramifications and a different kind of follow-up set of effect for women who are quote unquote difficult. And that's more what I think is hard, is that it might be the same feedback in the moment, but it accrues for us in a different way because women's bullishness is put into a negative bucket, whereas men's bullishness is put into a bucket that has to do with strength. And you've seen so many actors in our business, male actors, get away with like terrible behavior for decades. And people say, well, but he's just so talented. But a woman makes one very public screw up and she's like blacklisted forever.
I think the market neutralizes that aspect. Because there are tons of actresses that are absolutely hellacious to be around, and they're super talented, and people go see their product, and they just keep getting hired. I think if people consume your product in this business, you're going to be allowed to work.
Yeah.
Until the second you have a hiccup, and then you're out. Which you see, I'm sure you've been doing this long enough, and I've been doing it long enough where it's like I've been in the horse race next to a lot of dudes, and some of them were dicks and some of them were nice, and we've all had some humbling moments. I've been lucky enough to been given second chances and so on and so forth. I think largely because I'm fun to be around on a set. But the guys that were infamous dicks, they're out. Like the second they stumble, it's see you later.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's great that there's something that holds you accountable. There has to be. But I know what it is to sit in my communities of women and see that there are just, it's like there's more boxes next to your name than if you're a man in a lot of circumstances. And by the way, that's not me saying that life is not difficult as a man, or our industry is not difficult as a man, or that men don't face unfair circumstances all of the time. Of course you do.
Someone pointed this out brilliantly on Twitter, which is a great way to describe white privilege, because I was
just going to bring up a white privilege example.
I'm not always in love with how it's rolled out as a concept. A great way to describe white privilege is your life will be very difficult, but your skin color won't be one of the reasons your life's difficult.
Exactly.
And so your life as a man will be very difficult, but being a man likely won't be the cause of those difficulties, which I think is a great, for me, I don't know why that seems like a very non-triggering way to phrase it.
Yeah. And I just had that conversation. I've had like this very amazing out-of-body experience last week, and I got to speak at the Institute of Politics at Harvard, which was like, it was the coolest. And I spoke with one of my dear friends who is an activist and like just one of the most inspiring women on the planet, Brittany Packnett. You should follow her on all social media if you want to know about sort of justice, racial justice, intersectionality. She's a legend. And Simone Sanders, who is a commentator on CNN a lot. And it was a very important conversation we got to have. And I really was honored to be in the room with those two women. And then past the conversation we were having as women, the conversation we were having about race, to be a white woman really sitting and conversing with two Black women who I adore, idolize, respect, and am consistently just so impressed with, and I learn so much from, and to sit and talk about what allyship looks like. And for me to be able to say to the women who look like me in the room, guys, I'm not saying your life isn't hard. And the men who look like me in the room, that isn't it. That doesn't mean you haven't gone through tragedy, trauma.
I hope there were some guys that look like you.
There were some guys who look, long hair. But, tragedy, trauma, hardship, all of those things are very real. Your life can be inexplicably and wildly hard, but your race is not one of the things adding to your hardship. Mm-hmm. Hardship is hardship. But you start, again, having these extra boxes that can be ticked when you are a person of color, when you are a woman. And the irony that people who are so afraid or who are operating in scarcity mentality, as I think we've all been consciously and subconsciously taught to do in the world. So everyone thinks they don't have enough, won't have enough, whatever the manifestation of that is that people say, I want to know where my white privilege card is. Show it to me. And I'm like, I'm not saying you haven't had it hard. What I'm saying is that the complexity that makes things harder for others is something you should have sympathy toward. And very often I feel like we're mad at the wrong people. There are some things I think should supersede, quote, politics, red issue, blue issue, whatever, which I think is all bullshit. America's much more purple than it is anything.
I totally agree with you. How long did you live in Mid-Wilshire before moving to just south of San Simi?
We moved up there when I was 8.
8.
Yeah.
And it was a tiny little town.
Yeah, there were like 5,000 people there when
And was Dad taking photographs there? Is that why you went?
No. So we'd started taking little road trips as a family when I was a kid, and we'd drive up the California coast, and my parents would find like some cute, weird seaside motel. We'd stay for the weekend. And I just always loved nature. I loved being outside so much. And my parents really fell in love with Cambria on a vacation up there. We would go up there all the time because, it's like a 3.5-hour drive from LA.
Yeah.
So we could go up on a Friday night and come home on a Sunday night. My dad's career was going well, and the very notion of the American dream, they realized that in this small town, they might actually be able to find like a cute little vacation spot. Mm-hmm. They started looking around, and finally when they were able to swing it, they did. And
did he continue to work there as a photographer?
Well, so what they did, because they really liked the idea of me having this sort of like small town horseback riding on farms life, is my dad started splitting time. And he'd, work in LA for 4 days and come be with us for 3 days, and then work in LA for 3 days and come be with us for 4 days. And it was like charming at first, and then it was really exhausting for them.
Yeah, that sounds rough.
It's just hard.
Yeah.
And
you tell yourself, I'm doing this for my family so they can have this idyllic childhood. But then at the same time, like, what is important about childhood is just being with your family, probably.
Right. So we moved back to LA, and my parents decided that they wanted me to go to this all-girls school in Pasadena called Westridge School for Girls. I remember this. I threw a conniption fit because I was such a tomboy. Mm-hmm. I was always out playing with the boys and like digging things up. And I just couldn't fathom that I was going to have to go to school with all of these girls. And I had great girl friends growing up. But I think also my family dynamic, like my closest sort of cousins are a boy my age, a boy a year younger than me, and then a girl who's 3 years older than me. Mm-hmm. And we're all still the best of friends as adults. But as kids, we were like the Three Musketeers. And Jenna was like the homecoming queen, like who hated us, who thought we were just so annoying. So I think I had this, your little kid brain makes the connections with the limited amount of information it has access to. And I was like, girls are so pretty and scary and I don't get it. And the dudes and I, like, this is what's
You got it
fun.
figured out. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I really was so upset about this. Mm-hmm. And it wound up being awesome.
You loved it. You came to enjoy being surrounded by women.
Totally. Especially
I guess they weren't women yet.
as I got older, just the change that happens to your life, your psyche, your body, all of it, to not have any pressure around men, male attention, any of it. I mean, I went to school every day with nothing to do but learn.
Yeah.
It was really special.
I went with a buddy who went to an all-boys school, and I went like as a guest one day to be in his class.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, the guys don't brush their hair. They're like a mess. No one's trying to look good. No one was really showing off for any girls." It was it was incredibly different from my co-ed high school. Watching what dudes were farting in class, no one cared. I was like, "Oh my God, these guys would never get a date if they were acting this way."
Yeah.
Do you think, in retrospect, you're glad that you went to an all-girls school?
There's more gratitude on the scale than not. But on the flip side, I will never forget the first time I was in like a truly terrible relationship. It took me so much longer to figure it out and to get out of it than it should have, because I'd never been lied to before. I believed
Wait, your girlfriends
what
didn't lie
a
to you?
person. I mean, girls have little things, but no one was competing for a boy's attention. What were we lying to each other about? Certainly some of the girls in my high school were like mean girlish. Like, it took me a long time post college to realize that somebody I'd been friends with forever was like actually just not nice. And when I finally sorted it out, my mom was like, "Welcome to the party."
Yeah.
I've hated that girl since you were 12, you know?
Sure,
like,
sure.
She sucked. She was mean to you. And I was just like, oh my God. But that's a different thing than like manipulation, lying, whatever. I'd never gone through the thing where like in high school, you're like, you have a boyfriend and you hold hands and then you go steady, and then a week later you find out he's been kissing like Jane. You're like, I never did any of that.
Yeah.
So I took so much at face value, I think because of a naivete that was born out of no experience.
Did you like boys? Did you want a boyfriend? Were you upset there were no boys in your school?
I wasn't upset about it. We had like schools that we would do dances with and whatever. I still had great guy friends through high school.
Did you have boyfriends in high school?
I did. My high school sweetheart was my best friend from camp since I was 9.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's like still the best dude. Like one of my favorite people on the planet.
So he didn't kiss anyone or lie to you?
No, he was
Right.
like a super.
So maybe really you just made the mistake of dating a nice guy first.
Maybe total mistake. What I was
Big mistake.
Dating a nice guy. No, but I mean it. I just think my only relationship experience was with a really nice person. And relationships, like you know, when you go to an all-girls school, you see like your boyfriend maybe on a Wednesday night for a movie, and you go have dinner at his parents' house on a Saturday, whatever.
You don't make out in the hallway and
There's
getting on the
no
bus.
daily dynamic to be a part of in the same way. So I do think it probably stunted my emotional growth in those types of relationships. But,
Right.
you know, you catch up.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
Yeah, you're basically dating in the workplace when you're in high school.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
you're like seeing each other in between classes and stuff.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because now that I would be helping pick for my own girls what I would want them to get,
Right.
I'd probably want them to get a good education, but
Yeah.
it's very tricky. I got to measure like what is important in life. It's a very short trip. It's over in a blink.
Right.
Am I going to be really glad that I read Lolita, or am I going to be like loving that I went swimming with my girlfriend after school? I don't know. I'm not sure what's important.
I mean, I would say probably both.
Yeah, ideally
Depends on
both.
what affects you, you know?
Yeah.
I will never not be grateful for my high school English teacher who changed my perception of the world through literature, and my communications teacher and my political science teacher in college, and game-changing educators in my life. Also, I hated chemistry. And I was like, I'm never going to fucking need to know how to do any of this.
Yeah, that's the most
This
dangerous
doesn't-
thing when it occurs to you. I'm never going to do trigonometry in
I
my
was like,
life.
I'm just
I
never,
won't pick a
I'm
career.
never gonna need this. I know it. I'm sorry.
It's the worst thing you can realize.
Like, yeah, there were hours I wish that I'd been like dicking around having a good time in high school instead of in that class. But there's classes that changed my whole life. And I think that's the point, you know. It's actually something that I've talked to Belle about, is this notion that, you know, with our platforms and our job and this sort of megaphone we've been given, that part of the reason that we try to highlight a lot of really badass causes to people who are curious about philanthropy is because there's no way that every person who follows her or me or you on Instagram is all going to give a shit about the same thing.
Sure.
But imagine if we highlight 10 super cool things, ways to get active, involved, sponsor a school, sponsor a teacher, work on the environment. Some of that is going to get to everybody. You know, there will always be somebody who responds to one of those things. And so then you can really help to offer resources to people. And I kind of think that that's what it must be like to be, you know, obviously much more difficult. Hello, like, let's not act like this is a true comparison. I'm clarifying for you. But, you know, I think about that for teachers, that there's teachers who know that, you know, 5 of 20 students don't care about their class, but the 15 who do, they might be the kind of teacher who changes their life.
Well, we had a really great dude that was just in here. That book's on the counter. Todd Rose, who wrote this book, Dark Horse, and he studies at Harvard Education and how basically the whole system's really suffering from the fact that we designed the curriculum for second grade reading. And then when you get there, when you've designed things for the average or the median educational level or reading level for a certain age group, weirdly, it doesn't benefit anyone. So it's like virtually when they do the statistical analysis, half the class is above the second grade reading level that they've said was the average, and then half is below. So it's really servicing nobody. It's leaving almost everyone out. And the education itself has to be variable, which exists now with technology. So you can be teaching a classroom of 22 kids on iPads. The iPads themselves can evaluate the kids' actual retention, all this stuff, and then curtail the curriculum to their level.
Oh, that's really interesting.
And so it's like we have these solutions. A lot of them are a lot different than I think traditionally how we think the problem is, you know.
Right.
But how do you go from, you go to USC and you major in journalism, is that accurate?
Yeah, I went for the BFA acting program.
Oh, okay.
Because I always wanted to be a doctor. I was like dead set on being a pediatric heart surgeon. I was the weird kid who would do, you know, dissections in science class and ask Mr. Hallman if I could stay after during lunch to like do the rest. I was like, I need to understand how every part of the body of XYZ thing works. And I really thought med school was it. I think it's a little bit of like a kid of an immigrant mentality where it's like you're a doctor, you're a lawyer. Those are your options. You're going to go to college. You're going to like make the family happy, whatever. And I had an arts requirement in school, in this awesome all-girls school that I went to. There were 2 years of arts requirements, and every semester you had to do a different kind of art, and I put the play off till last because I had this friend, Betsy, who I'm still friends with from middle school. She is the raddest, funniest, like coolest chick.
Well, you got to live up to a name like Betsy.
You have to.
Yeah, you can't just be named Betsy.
And like, you know, tall with like fire engine red hair. Like, she's just a big personality. And she was a really passionate musical theater kid. And so in my little brain, it was like that, the like singing and the show tunes and the, like that was theater. And I was like, whoa, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I'm obsessed with
You're
you.
not Shirley Temple.
But like, I don't think that's for me.
Sure.
I'm like a nerdy science kid. And then the play requirement came, and she and I got to do a play together, and it was like the most fun because you're hanging out with your best friend after school doing rehearsal. But the thing that hit me was that it was the living version of every one of my favorite books from an English class. That storytelling could be alive. And in real time, I was seeing the emotional response that it could create in a person, the catharsis, the humor. And I was like, oh, this is really cool.
What you just described, your interest in it, is so deep and beautiful, and something I definitely see like a 30-year-old professor appreciating about the power of the medium.
Right.
But I am also going, no, you were a 16-year-old girl at some point. You didn't want to be Alyssa Milano or anything?
I was like a very nerdy child.
Okay.
I don't know if it like really. I wanted to be a
But even
pediatric
nerds-
heart surgeon. I
nerds-
didn't say like I want to be a doctor.
Right.
I was always really into meaning as a kid. My parents didn't really understand it. You know, I'll never forget when like I got the National Geographic 6 cassette box set about the world, and I watched the tape on the Amazon rainforest literally so many times I burned the tape through on the VHS player.
Yeah.
And I would sob when I would hear or like read a paper and see that the rainforest was being cut down. And my
Right.
parents were like, "What is the matter with you?
Sure.
Like you're 7."
Yeah, this is just how Kristen is.
I was a weird kid.
But did you like TV shows? Did you like movies? Did you have
A little bit.
Did you like bands? Did you like Backstreet Boys?
I used to wake up. No, I was into like Paula Abdul and Nirvana and Prince. I grew up listening to Motown with my mom, and my dad was like an
me
Eagles
too.
fan. Yeah, I don't know. There was something about the power of it, but I thought it was a hobby. So I started doing theater through high school, and then my senior year in high school, I told my parents I didn't want to go to medical school. I wanted to go to a theater conservatory. And like, they were just like, "Fuck," you know. And I found
Which
out
is
my
kind of
mom-
weird since your dad's a photographer.
Right, but my mom looked at my dad and was like, "This is your fault. You made your fucking hobby into your career, and now she thinks she can do it too."
Yeah.
You know, they were totally petrified, and my dad was like, "Maureen, give her a year. Like, she's gonna go. She's gonna be so bored. Give her a year." And so a year into being in the theater school, when I was like, "This is really not for me. Whatever this is, I'm not into it." I did drop out of the BFA program. I transferred into the journalism school. My parents were like, "Here we go." And I was like, "No, I just think that knowing what's actually going on in the world will make me a much better and more communicative storyteller." And they were like, "Fuck." So
Double down.
yeah, I doubled down on it, but it was interesting that studying journalism and political science and everything in the communication school, it did. I really felt like it made me better at storytelling and relating to people.
Well, how did you end up on a TV show? Because you got on One Tree Hill young, right? You were 20, 21? How old were you?
I had been 21 for 2 whole weeks.
Oh, really? And had you been in stuff before that show?
Yeah, I did an arc on the first season of Nip Tuck, which was super cool.
Oh, wow.
It was-
Wait, who were you? I loved Nip
So
Tuck.
Kate Mara and I had this whole thing together. Jolie Richardson, oh my God, I'm blanking on the name of the actor who played her husband. This is so embarrassing.
That's all right.
They were a couple on the show, and they had a son, and the son was like super in love with this redheaded girl who was Kate Mara, but Kate Mara was in love with her best friend who was me.
Oh,
and
yes.
and the
Very Ryan
scandalous.
Murphy.
Yeah, we had this like whole thing, and we were like three high school kids who thought it like might be fun to like try to hook up, and then I realized she is in love with me, and he's freaking out, and we have like a sit down basically with all 3 of our sets of parents.
Oh, boy.
To talk about the fact that we got caught. Like,
Was your first
about to have
on-screen
sex.
kiss with a woman?
No, but that was my first on-screen kiss with a woman, and so it's like a very fun point of like whenever I'm celebrating Pride, I'm just like been super proud to be an ally for as long as I've been on TV. But yeah, Kate and I became friends and have stayed friends, and she's the coolest chick on the planet. But I'd done this HBO movie with Ray Liotta before that was really fun, and I did like a couple of really bad independent movies, which we've all
Sure.
done. And,
Yeah.
But yeah, I booked the job in North Carolina to go do One Tree Hill, and I almost didn't take it because I was like, but I'm going to miss my senior year of college. Like, I only get one. And my advisor, Annie, in the journalism school at USC Annenberg was like, are you out of your mind? You can come back to college anytime
You're
you
gonna
want.
be 80 years old.
What does it
You're
matter
finna-
with you?
Yeah.
Like, you go and you do this. This is what you want to do. And, you know, who would have known that it would be on for what felt like ever?
Was it 9 years?
9 years.
And were you on all 9 years?
It was.
And were you excited to move to North Carolina or nervous or both?
I mean, all of it. You know, the idea of uprooting felt really weird, but also really exciting.
Yeah, because that's normally the age you'd be at a college generally in a foreign land, but you were in
Yeah.
LA. Were you in Charlotte?
We were in Wilmington.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it felt scary and fun. And we all also, to the point I was making, like, we didn't know the show was going to be on for almost a decade. I think we all would have done things very differently if we had, but, you know, hindsight.
Like what things would you have done?
Like, we would have all been smart and, like, invested in real estate.
Oh, sure,
And,
sure.
like, you know, like,
Yeah, bought
I
a
don't know,
place.
all sorts of things. Like,
Would
we
you
didn't-
just rent
we
places
didn't
or would you stay
know.
at hotels? What would you do?
We mostly rented places, and I have a little bit of like ADD, and I felt very locked into this place that was really little. So I would like move around all the time. I'd like live by the beach, live downtown, go to the beach, go to the middle of town, go back downtown, go back to the beach. Like I just was so stir crazy there. I don't know if you've been through this. I would imagine you have, because I feel like as a tactic they like to use, but TV bosses love to tell you that like you're on the bubble, your show's just one step away from getting canceled. They want you to feel like you're expendable
all
all
6
the time.
years of parenthood, they said we weren't coming back.
Exactly.
All 6 years. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like
It's a great
regardless of the
bargaining
fact
tool.
that you're on one of like the biggest hit shows, they
Sure.
tell you that you should be grateful to have a job, never ask for a raise, and you're probably going to get fired tomorrow. So you're living in this constant state of panic. So, we always thought like, well, this is it. And then we'd get picked up again.
Yeah.
And you just never...
Because it was a hit,
Huge.
right?
Yes, but they loved to tell us it wasn't.
Right.
And it was huge.
It was on the CW?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And still, by the way, like
Right.
it still has this. I joke with people. I'm like, I am Matthew McConaughey in Dazed and Confused because I keep getting older, but the girls stay the same age. Like high school girls, college
Yes.
girls.
They
there's
still
just
love the show.
Waves of it, and it's so crazy. The best comparison to me. There's this great English musician, Craig David.
Okay.
And he was like, yeah, I'm at the point in my career now where fans that are our age tell me that their 16-year-old kids are like, hey, Mom, Dad, I found this great guy. His name's Craig David. And they're like, when I was your age, I was dancing in clubs to Craig David music. Like, sit down. Whoa. But like some of the kids don't even realize that it's not new. And
Well, you're lucky, though. Can I just say that the opposite for me is the case where I run into full-fledged adults, like 30-year-old men who are like, dude, Without a Paddle was my favorite movie in 6th grade. And I'm like, oh my God, that was your favorite movie in 6th grade, I'm so much older than I thought.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, I can
though.
promise you the opposite isn't necessarily more comforting.
Well-
to see like a dude with grandkids tell you he loved you when he was a kid.
I actually really am obsessed with when grandparents want to talk to me about like high school age character storylines.
Oh, sure.
I had like some 70-year-olds be like, I started watching with my granddaughter and I just thought it was so great that you decided to get into, they're so cute. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you're my favorite fan I've ever had.
Now, it was all young people, right? And how many cast members were there of you guys?
Oh my God, there were a lot of us. I mean,
Okay.
there was sort of like a core 5,
Okay.
if you will. And then a whole, because we were in high school, so there was a whole periphery of great characters, and some came and went over the years, and some stayed the long haul. Like,
And you guys are all 20, 21, somewhere in there, right? You're all
Yeah.
young. And then you're all getting famous overnight, right?
yes, but it was different for us because we were away and we were in a very small town.
I would think that would make
So-
it worse.
No, because
Aren't you more exciting in a small town than you are in LA?
Yes and no. I mean, yeah, for sort of like stranger danger, like people running up to you and grabbing you on the street, which happens to me still, and I think I'm never going to get over. It's very scary. That's weirder in a small town, but we didn't have the experience that like the kids from the OC or the kids from Gossip Girl had, where we were being like chased around by paparazzi, getting invited to crazy events, going to crazy parties. We didn't
Because you weren't in LA
any of that.
or New York.
We just like went to work at 4 a.m. and left at 8 p.m. and like,
Now, how?
we went to like the Copper Penny. It's like a great bar in downtown Wilmington, and we'd like have beers and go home.
Oh, this sounds
it was
so
very
fun.
normal.
I like this.
Yeah.
Now, we're being so young. I got to imagine 21-year-olds in general aren't going to be crazy benevolent with sharing. Was there a bit of like controversy over competition, who's more famous, that kind of stuff? Was it like, did it get dicey? Because it seems like a lot to give.
Honestly, not in the way I think it could have. I think there was a little bit of that more came from insensitivity on our like grown-up producers' parts. Like there's certain things that should probably be reserved for private one-on-one conversations with actors and like shouldn't be announced in front of everyone because it doesn't feel good to hear that like someone's testing through the roof. Like that's not it doesn't
Right.
feel great to be like, cool, now I'm getting, like looked at or whatever. They didn't do a great job with some of that, but for the most part, that wasn't really an issue with us. What sort of came to light later was like, and I don't know if you saw, the whole thing that happened last fall or not, but all of us girls were the first cast to like write a cast letter about the sort of predatory environment on a set.
I did
So
not see
what
that.
was interesting for us was that we found out later, in addition to just like being a total piece of shit, there was this thing going around where, everyone loved to talk about the Friends cast, about their renegotiation.
Oh, right, and how they all did it as a
became
team.
This hit show, and they were all the best of friends, and they renegotiated together and whatever. So forget the fact that when Friends was on, there were like 5 TV channels and they got 23 million viewers a week. Like none of us could pay for that now.
Sure.
You could like be doing like crazy sacrifices to the devil if you believe in that shit, and you'd still never have 23 million viewers a week. But like the impossibility of it just makes me laugh. Anyway, but there was this sort of thing that I heard from a lot of people back then that was like, oh yeah, all the bosses were like, you got to get in the middle. Like, don't let your cast get too tight. Like, because and then they'll fuck you over.
Right.
It was like a whole thing.
Sure.
So we found out later that our boss really liked to talk a lot of shit that wasn't true.
To try to
each of
start
us about
stuff.
the other. And what we realize now, sort of as a cast being closer than ever, is there were times when like things were perfectly copacetic and whatever on set, but we all really sort of had our own groups of friends. We didn't spend as much social time together after a while as we did in the beginning. And luckily, we sort of got to the bottom of that, and we were like, oh, watch us now. Like, we're going to hang out all the time. So we were able to undo that, but even when we weren't like, party of 5,
Right.
there wasn't like animosity. There wasn't
that's
hatefulness. There was just more of a like, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. You
fell in love with one of your co-stars? You got married to one of them?
Are we really going to discuss this one?
I just learned this yesterday.
The reason that I don't talk about it, is because everyone's been 21 and stupid, but if you're in our job, for some reason, people want to talk to you about like when you're fully fledged adults who've done really amazing shit with your lives. They want to talk to you about the dumb thing you did in college, basically, which doesn't make sense to me because like in any other realm, if a CEO is like having a meeting, no one's going to ask about like the time they went to a kegger in college. And
Well,
for
can I
me-
really quickly be super clear with you why I asked?
Yeah, no, because
Is
you
that-
just learned a thing.
Well, more than that.
Sure.
I can't learn anything from your victory. If you win an Emmy
That's true.
and I'm in America, I can't
Yeah.
relate to that. I'm not
Yeah,
going to win an
I get
Emmy.
that.
I can relate to making a mistake and getting married and then
Sure.
getting out of that and then being shame-ridden by that and wondering like, fuck, I'm still in that spot. How do you grow out of that? What are the tools you use? Like, your victories don't teach me anything.
Absolutely, but
That's why
what's
I'm interested in
complex
it.
about this issue for me
Yeah.
is that the person who I was 21 and stupid with is also an actor. Mm-hmm. And I got asked about this on a radio show back in the summer, and I talked about my experience. I said, like, when you're a kid and you realize you're making a mistake and you feel pressured and all this stuff. And I talked about this only from my perspective. I don't
Yeah.
speak my ex's name. I'm not talking about anybody else's experience but my own.
Yes.
And what it was blown up into and what it was made into.
Oh, sure.
I'm very trepidatious
Oh, for sure.
about speaking about it because, and again, the irony is that, it was made into this story that everybody serviced for his opinion, and not for mine. All I'm doing is talking about my experience.
And can I just tell you, I have
Yeah.
zero interest in him. I don't even know his name.
No, totally.
I have zero interest in him.
appreciate it.
I have zero interest in the gossip that
Yeah.
happened. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
And by the way,
What
all I'm
happened?
ever interested in
Yeah.
is what your side of the street was and how you cleaned up and changed your side of the street. Because I don't even know who the guy is. I don't know if he murdered someone. Even if he murdered someone, there's nothing for you to fix about that. You can't
know.
change another
I know.
person, but you need to do some things to
Yes.
ensure that you're never going to end up marrying a murderer. And that's what's of interest to me.
Yeah.
So I had a girlfriend of 9 years who I still love. She's the most wonderful person in the world. In the first year and a half we were broken up, I could have listed to you everything she did wrong in that relationship and why she caused the breakup. But then when all that dissipated and I was no longer hurt and angry, I started going, oh, I really fucked up here. I fucked up there. That's the only thing that's relevant because I'm not in charge of changing her for the rest of her life. So she has great relationships going forward. I'm in charge of changing Dax.
Yes.
And in making sure that I'm very honest in objective about what role I played in it.
Yeah.
So I'm only interested in your role.
Totally.
You already kind of hit on it a little bit, which is you probably didn't have a bunch of relationships in high school that you would have maybe normally had.
No, not at
And so you
all.
didn't learn to look for red flags, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And there was some level of, maybe also, if you're really critical, it's like maybe you believed in some romantic notion that you bought into.
Yeah, I think I was a really naive kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and maybe it is that story of change. Maybe it's like some weird morphing of that like American dream idea that you can like come somewhere and you can start over and you can make something of yourself. And there's romance in that.
Sure.
And I think there's romance in that in a relationship.
So often, what's motivating you to like somebody is your own insecurities. So this person is somehow alleviating an insecurity of yours. Now, whether it is, again, I don't even know this person. Let's say this dude had a leather jacket and rode a Harley and was a bad boy, and you have an insecurity of, I'm a fucking nerd.
Right.
People don't really like me. Now here's this guy who's kind of validating me, who is all those other things.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying, that's your side of the street.
Sure, and I'm sure a lot of those kinds of feelings were at play. Like, yeah, being like a super nerdy kid, and suddenly like you're on TV and all this stuff is happening, and like, you know, one of the cool people you work with thinks you're awesome. Like,
Yeah.
there's really base brain stuff there.
Of course.
I think that for me, it took me a long time to do the kind of inventory you're talking about in the after effect.
Yeah.
And I continued to be in a place of work with my ex.
Well, it's a great
And
distraction,
so
too.
There was no space to self-reflect. There was like, this is my integrity. This is my job. I will not falter for 1 second or 1 minute ever on this set. I will be the most fucking professional person anyone has ever seen.
This
And
all
I did
happened
that.
within the filming of the 9 years.
Yeah.
Were the producers shitting a brick? Like, what's going to happen to this show now? We have a divorced couple on
No,
set.
they were actually really deeply inappropriate to both of us.
Oh, they were.
About it. Yeah,
Like
they
threatening
They
or-
ran like TV ads about it. Like,
Oh my God.
it was really ugly.
Oh my.
They
goodness.
made practice of taking advantage of people's personal lives, and not just for me and for my ex, for other actors on the show who would share, like as you do when you get close to people, deeply personal things that were happening in their lives, and they would wind up in storylines. They would it wasn't okay.
Right.
It just like wasn't okay.
Yeah, very opportunistic.
It was opportunistic and ugly, and like when you run a show, you're like a parent. You're supposed to protect your flock, and it was the opposite of that. And I imagine that was hard for him as well. You know, it was a very ugly situation on their part. I think they kind of lived for the drama.
Right. 'Cause they felt like it was good for the
Yeah.
ratings.
And I think for me,
Was it good for the ratings?
I don't know. I wasn't paying attention to
Okay.
it. You know, there was like no social media. We didn't have smartphones.
Isn't that-
So you weren't like Googling the ratings for your show on your phone.
Also, that is a little bit of a blessing, right?
Probably.
Because going through, I've had a lot of people on here who've had like public breakups.
Yeah.
And yeah, the fact that people have they have a direct line to you now.
Yeah, it's ugly.
It really compounds all those things. Like,
Yeah.
like my mom was on here, and my first stepdad was physically abusive. And I said to her, it's so boggling to most people, I would imagine. You're a super strong woman. How on earth would you have stayed with this person? And she goes, my shame of failing a second time was so strong that literally that's what it was. Like if I had to isolate it, the shame of that failure
Yeah.
was so huge. And it's so funny because we all feel that sense of like, that's such a mortal failing.
Yeah.
Yet it's ubiquitous and almost the norm is for that to happen to all of us. Yet we individually assume that somehow our transgression's worse than any other or something. It's
Well, and what I think about, 'cause having done that inventory, similarly, I would imagine to your mom, is I go, oh, isn't it interesting though that the shame in maybe failing again might be the thing that keeps making you fulfill the pattern of putting up with something you don't deserve.
well, because you want to get it
dating the wrong
right, right?
person.
Like you want to try it again.
Yeah, but like you're not doing it right because you're playing out an old pattern, and the work that it really takes to undo some of that stuff, and to look at how you do things and why you do things, and after a first hurt or whatever, how that pain, that fear, that humiliation, whatever it was you were going through, all of them morph into these motivators, these like pain points that are calling for attention, but you don't realize what attention they're calling for. So you continue to feed them with versions of the thing that hurt you.
Sure.
that has been a really interesting sort of exploration for me.
Yeah. Well, also, I think, too, we've talked about that a bunch here, which is like familiarity is a dicey thing. And the hardest thing to do, and it's like the thing in AA that is so hard for people to embrace, which is this notion of contrary action, right? Which is like almost as an experiment, do opposite of everything that comes natural to you or feels right to you. Because at a certain point in your life, if you look at your life and you don't like the pattern it's in, you have to admit to yourself that your instincts aren't great and that the choices you want to make seem to be repeating themselves. So you actually have to make choices to do things that don't feel natural to you, that aren't appealing.
Yeah.
And that's so bizarre. But then if you have the willingness to do that and then you end up looking at the results, if you can get through it, you'll find like, oh my goodness, this thing's probably better for me.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
So I just did this thing that I think you would love. I've been really fortunate. I have this buddy named Miles who lives in Nashville, and we've known each other for almost 10 years. And for 10 years, I've been learning about the work that he does at this place called Onsite. It's a retreat center. They do work with autistic kids. They do work with trauma recovery and, you know, people dealing with addiction. And in my head, I guess I always thought like, oh, when you go through something like totally crazy, you go there. And in the years of our friendship, I've learned about some of their programming and I've been so fascinated by it. And he finally was like, well, why don't you just come check it out? And I was like, yeah, but I mean, I don't have like addiction. I don't know. I'm okay. Like I've had
As if
some
anyone's
trauma, but
okay.
like, I don't know what my trauma really is in comparison.
Sure.
Because I play the comparison game where I don't have a right to trauma because other people have been traumatized worse.
Right.
Kind of thing. And he was like, I think he was kind of like, that's cute. And so we wound up as just sort of like a community uplift experience. We curated a group of 22 of our buds and we went out to Onsite and did programming. And for a little data nerd like me, the lectures in the morning and at night with learning about ACEs, learning about trauma wiring, learning about when you have a missed pattern in the development, in your childhood development, in your family, your brain misses wiring in certain ways and they literally don't exist until
You don't form
rewire
those
it.
synapses.
You know, yes. So all of these really interesting things where you go, oh, so the things I witnessed, the things that hurt me turned into this. I missed this. No wonder I keep repeating this thing. And, you know, there's that adage that life will make you repeat a lesson until you learn it. And you get that, like theoretically.
Intellectually,
But you don't get it. And so I went to Onsite and I unpacked so much of this stuff. And I realized that as I was thinking, I was like being a tough guy, doing the thing, showing up at work, I programmed myself to tolerate the intolerable. And part of the big break for me in saying, no, I don't necessarily know what it is, but I know that what's happening is not good for me and everything has to change. That was a big cutoff point when I quit my job. I was like,
Chicago.
Yeah, I was like, I got to change. It has to stop. Everything stops.
Oh, wow.
And I quit because what I've learned, I've been so programmed to be a good girl and to be a workhorse and to be a tugboat that I have always prioritized tugging the ship for the crew, for the show, for the group, ahead of my own health. My body would react to something that I was like, that's not a big deal. It's not great, but it's not a big deal. The reality was that my body was like falling apart because I was really, really unhappy.
From the outside, here's what I know.
Yeah.
I know that you're on that show. From the outside, I saw that you promoted the show a ton, like on your Instagram and stuff. It appeared to me that you loved being on that show.
There were aspects of it that I loved.
Were you in Chicago?
Yeah.
That's rough, right?
That was really hard.
Again, not because we don't love Chicago, but it's just not your home.
It's not your home. And there's a thing that happens, and I think the reason that sets can be hard for people, and like, you know, every actor we know has like dated somebody they've worked with, like, hello, literally everybody. You're so insulated. The hours are so crazy. You have nobody else to hang out with. It's like summer camp that never ends. But instead of like gallivanting in the woods all day, you're like working 16 hours a day. And for us, our writers were here in LA And they were like, the snow looks so cool on camera. And we were like, it's literally 30 degrees below zero.
Right.
Oh my God.
So it's 62 degrees below freezing. And you're going to say we have to keep working outside? Like, people were sick all the time. It was really just physically
hard.
Hard. But the culture protected it. And the culture said, this is just what it is. And get the job done and do the job and do the things. And there were a lot of people there who I really loved. But it was not okay. But I internalized and sort of like inhabited that role of like pull the tugboat to the point that it was like, well, just because I'm unhappy or I'm being mistreated or I'm being abused at work, I'm not going to fuck up this job for all these people. And what about my camera guy whose 2 daughters I love? And like, this is how he pays their rent. You know, what about it becomes such a big thing because there is this.
By the way, I know you denied being codependent earlier in this conversation,
Sure.
but that sounds very codependent.
Totally. No, I'm not saying I'm not. I'm just saying like, but you know, there is a thing. And by the way, when your bosses tell you that if you raise a ruckus, you'll cost everyone their job.
Sure,
You
yeah.
believe them.
Yeah.
It was also convoluted with the fact that there were great aspects of it. And I did get to stunt drive and go on ride-alongs and train and do all
Yeah.
these things that were really fulfilling. So this thing that's sort of great for you is also really bad for you. And how do you know what to do? So my body, while I can make those mental arguments all day, my body was like,
We'll take you out of this. We'll make this decision for you.
yeah.
How do you get out of that? Because you clearly have a 7-year contract. That's whatever all of us have to sign to start. And you were 5 years in?
I was 4 years in.
4 years in. So how do you get out of it? You just you call your agent and you go, you got to get me out of this?
No, actually, when I finally started talking to my agents and my attorneys about what was going on there, they were like, how could you not have come to us sooner? What happened was I sat my 2 bosses down and I said, it was after the table read for the first episode of season 4. And they already knew what was going on, but I was like, this is how not okay it is. And if things haven't drastically changed between last year and this year, I'm warning you now so you don't have the argument of saying she was like a hysterical female or was emotional or cried. I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to give you till the end of the season. And if it isn't different, I'm leaving. So it's not even like 2 weeks notice.
Right.
It's you have 23 episodes of notice.
To figure this out. Yeah.
To figure it out. When I started rattling off the list of what had been happening on set and was literally told to stop by my boss, because this is all shit I got to call HR about and I really don't want to deal with this anymore. And I was like, okay, so I'm making the right decision. I have to go.
Right.
Said, there's no way they're going to let you go. Like, you can kick and scream. They're not going to let you go.
Yeah.
And I just said, okay, so you can put me in the position of going quietly of my own accord, or you can put me in the position of suing the network to get me out of my deal, and I'll write an op-ed for the New York Times and tell them why. I was like, balls of fucking steel at this point.
Right.
So I take a lot, and then when I'm done like it's nuclear.
Right. We finally found something you and I share.
Hey,
in
brother.
common. Generally, the first time you hear I have a problem, I'm holding 2 Molotov cocktails.
Exactly. Exactly. And I will say, like, moments when I'm so grateful that there are amazing women and amazing men in the room. Jen Salke was still the head of the network. And when this finally got up the flagpole to her, and I found out for 4 years it had been hidden from her, which was also unacceptable, she called me and was just like, talk to me, tell me, I don't need to talk to an attorney, what's going on? Because then it was like, it's done. You can have, like, of course, we're so sad, but of course, you want to go. We would never try to make you stay.
Yeah.
And that I really appreciated.
Were you fearful during this whole thing? Like, well, I'm pretty much sealing my fate. I'll never get hired on a TV show again because I've left.
I think I'm too bullishly optimistic, even in my like raging against the dying of the light every day, to think that that could be it. Because to me, I work really hard. I know I have a good reputation. I know that I can be a little too political for people, and to anyone that offends, I apologize, but also I don't know how else to be.
Sure.
I am not a difficult person to work with. I know that nearing the end of my tenure there, I was probably difficult to be around because I was in so much pain and I felt so ignored. I said to one of my coworkers who, checked in with me and was like, how are you feeling? And I said, I finally came to terms with the fact that I feel like I was standing butt naked, bruised and bleeding in the middle of Times Square, screaming at the top of my lungs, and not a single person stopped to ask if they could help me. That was hard. But I wasn't worried that I'd never get another job again by any means.
Oh, that's good.
Because to me, staying was like certain death. Like I wasn't going to make it out of there.
Right. So then the decision becomes much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now to be like my jerky AA self, I will just say there's a really clear parallel to someone who's been with an abusive boyfriend twice. So you've had 9 years of work experience. No, 13 years of work experience that are a bit of a pattern.
Sure.
So how are you going forward going to not end up in a third situation?
So what I do want to clarify is that our experience on One Tree Hill was unpleasant, but our boss, who was a bad dude, lived in LA. So 80% of the time, we were on set loving our experience and each other.
Right.
And then he would come to town and it would be like, watch out for fucking Hansy McHansy over there.
Oh boy, yeah.
And like, and then we'd find out about like text messages he was sending girls, and like, you know, there was a lot that was inappropriate, but it wasn't all the time.
Sure.
And the weird thing is, and the sad thing is, we still had like nice memories with the guy.
Yeah,
Still
sure.
some days where
Well,
you'd be like, "There's the guy I knew," and then he'd be gross again, and you'd be like, "God damn it!"
Well,
you know, it wasn't the same.
That's the part no one really wants to talk about or acknowledge, is that all of us are so multifaceted.
Yes.
We would love it. It would be so easy and convenient if we could put human beings into a box of good and evil,
can't.
but no. Everyone's got a little dose of evil. They got, you know, hopefully a lot more dose of good, and it's just all that's what makes it so nuanced, challenging, and if you're a young actress, just a quick heads up.
Yeah.
The creator of a show probably doesn't need your phone number.
Yeah,
he
email's
doesn't
good.
need to text message you. He can go through someone else.
Yeah.
Just as a quick,
It's a good.
as a rule of thumb.
Yeah, emails are fine.
Especially if you're day playing on a show, you probably don't need telephone communication with the creator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. Good.
Yikes.
That's an excellent piece of advice. Thank you.
Yeah, just going
That's how
forward.
allies, gentlemen. But you know, so I do want to clarify that they were very different experiences. One was
Sure.
like a guy who we were like, oh God, he's back. And one was a consistent onslaught barrage of abusive behavior. And you know, you start to lose your way when someone assaults you in a room full of people. And everyone literally looks away, looks at the floor, looks at the ceiling. And you're the one woman in the room. And every man who's twice your size doesn't do something. You go, oh, that wasn't worth defending? I'm not worth defending?
Well, what's also challenging is there's all kinds of systems that are successful.
Yeah.
And it's really, I feel like it gets doubly hard to challenge something that produces the desired result.
Yeah.
It's kind of like being on a football team that never loses, but you cheat.
Yeah.
And you go, well, I guess that's what we do. Like, I guess that's how you get this result.
And to your point about someone who you say, I like 96% of them and 4% of them's a doozy. This is like, well, 96% of this project is going great. And we understand that 4% is really a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
But 96% is awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll let it go.
Sure.
But when you're the person on the receiving end of 100% of that 4% fire,
Yeah.
it's untenable.
Sure.
And
I love
so-
that word, by the way.
I love it too.
Untenable.
Isn't it
So
good?
good. That and unflappable. They're in all my
Untenable is nice.
my historical fiction. They use that word a lot.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm into that.
Untenable, yeah.
Untenable is a good one.
Great.
And yeah, I realized that I didn't have to put this sort of Sisyphean task of pushing this endless boulder up
You
the
just
hill.
hit Monica's favorite
Yeah, I
word.
like
You
that
just went
word
back to
too.
back.
Oh
Yeah,
my
this is
God,
like
did I just zing you
Good
both?
couple
Yeah.
sentences.
Wait a
Absolutely.
second. I made a joke on your Instagram recently. You called out like some stupid tabloid. You know they have those like Monday meetings at tabloids, and they're like, let's come up with a story. And you called
That
out
we're
like,
having
stupid
like a
tabloid
super
story.
sexy.
Yeah, that you and K-Bell are like auditioning people for threesomes or something. And I was like, oh, so our podcast interviews a podcast. It's cool. It's fine. I'll still come. I just like wanted to make a joke because I thought it was so funny. So I feel like the three of us just had like an intellectual threesome.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you can tell people that you sort of
right.
did it.
Yeah.
There you go.
I feel
Cool.
really like
Satisfied?
Well, no, 'cause- and you
I
know
thought he
my
was going to say engorged, and I was like, please don't do it.
you know my pattern, and you know what I'm attracted to, which is actually pleasing someone. So as much as you just gave me my favorite word and you gave Monica's, I'm more upset that I haven't given you your favorite
Yeah.
word. To me, that's where the real satisfaction and the ego
appreciate that.
inflating would come from, is if I had hit a word for you that you loved.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll let you know. And so for the last year and change since I left, my weekly therapy is non-negotiable.
Good.
And to really start unpacking trauma and to go through the experiential therapy that actually starts rewiring your brain. I don't turn to the things that are the sort of hole fillers for me
Yeah.
that I didn't even realize really were. Because like I could
You're not
say
a
like
big
I'm not
drinker?
traditionally addicted to anything.
Okay.
Like, so I wasn't paying attention to things that were kind of addictive behaviors.
Sure.
And it all has sort of lost its oomph for me because I'm like, oh, I'm not trying to fill a bottomless hole.
Right.
I mother that version of myself now. And because every version of me that's in me is actually solely my responsibility.
Yes.
And the 8-year-old and the 12-year-old and the 21-year-old, we're always looking for someone to not wound me the way the person I loved the most in the world wounded me at that stage. And I don't need anybody to not wound me anymore. I don't wound myself.
Right. Most important thing to recognize is like all those things are explanations to why you're here.
Yeah.
But there's only one human being that gets you to where you want to be. It's not everyone else. It's just you. You are completely responsible to feel the way you want to feel. It's your job. It's no one else's. And no one's going to make you feel a certain way. No one's going to heal you. No one's going to do anything. You've got to do all that.
All of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's really, that's something a lot of us understand intellectually, but this society does not teach us those tools.
No,
We barely
no,
teach
no,
our
no.
kids to read in school.
The fact that there's not a course on how to communicate in a relationship and state your needs.
Or
and
by the way,
state-
just empathy education curriculum, we're really missing some big dots here. And so I had to go back and relearn some of that, which made cerebral sense to me, but didn't have emotional practice. And so much of our patterning comes from our wiring. And so we do the same thing every day and we don't even realize it.
Yeah.
So you have to it's like fixing a car engine. Like you got to pop the hood, you got to take the engine out, take all the wires apart, put new lines in, and then you do it and you're like, oh my car runs like
Look at this.
gangbusters.
Son of a bitch is putting out 600 horse at the wheel.
Yeah, look
what
at
happened. Do you know what you're going to do next? Are you going to try to act? What are you doing?
So what was really a highlight for me, and I think made the leaving less scary, because to your point, I probably would have a couple months after I quit my job been like, oh fuck, what did I do? But I got a call from one of my idols in the TV industry, like an executive at a studio who is just like such a badass, Dana Walden, who runs 20th Century, and was like, I hear through the grapevine, you're quitting your job, you want to produce and act. We want your voice here.
Oh my God, that's so
And
flattering.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
Okay. So I went into a production sort of umbrella over there. And I got connected with this incredible writer named David White. And he had this script about a woman who works at the NSA. And I was like, oh, hello there. So the show is this beautiful amalgamation of all the things I care about in the world, of technology, innovation, patriotism. It really looks at things from all sides. And we're going to shoot the pilot in like 5 weeks. And I'm
cool.
so excited. It's been so great, to have so many more divisions of a project to put my brain power into.
Sure, yeah.
Because
Well, that sense of ownership is really rewarding. And
the sense of ownership, and also I'm a person who has ideas about everything. I'm a nerd, and feel ownership and be a woman at that table, and know that I get to set a tone on my set and make sure that any actor or crew member who comes through there has the most rewarding and fulfilling and fun experience.
what's the name of it?
It's called Surveillance.
Today it's called Surveillance.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
I've shot so many things.
I know,
I'd
isn't that
say
great?
almost half the things I've shot ended up having a different title when they came out.
Yeah, I shot this really terrible independent movie when I was in college. And the title was actually something like sweet and collegiate. and what they changed it to. And I will not tell you because I don't want you to.
Was it
IMDb
called
and
Muff
watch it.
Diver?
No, it was not.
Darn
But
it.
close. They changed it to a title that literally made it sound like a
Porky's.
low key porn.
I mean,
Sure,
you know I'm
sure.
gonna
And I was
have
like,
to find
Yeah, we'll
it.
find
I'm
it.
gonna
Just
have to.
I'll talk to
sorry,
you
it's
about
my
it when
job.
people aren't listening, but like it's not one of my things people need to go back and watch. You have 187 episodes of One Tree Hill you can watch.
That's true.
Just please watch anything but the bad indie
But
movie.
Muff Diver.
I can't wait to find out the name of Muff Diver. Well, Sophia, you're a wonderful human being. Like my wife, you're a better person than me. Thank God there's people like you on the planet. And I hope the pilot turns out great. And I hope you get to, be the person setting the tone. It's all very fun. And then when it's a huge success, you'll come back and we'll promote that.
Okay,
All right.
let's do that.
Bye, Sophia.
Bye.
Hello.
Cecilia?
Cecilia?
Oh, hi.
Oh, hi.
Hey.
Oh, hi. Hang on. Sorry, I have this 5-year-old son.
Oh,
that's
sure.
okay.
We suffer from
Yeah.
we suffer from the same condition.
Oh my gosh. Right.
Is-
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to talk to you guys.
We're excited to talk to you. Is your son in? Did he start kindergarten this year?
No, he just missed the cutoff by like a couple of weeks. But if he had, if he hadn't, we probably would have still held him back anyway, because like I think that's what people are doing now anyway.
Yeah, there seems to be like an arms race with this. My prediction is that in 20 years, people will start kindergarten when they're like 13.
Oh my God, I know. But anyway, no. But we're actually in the process of setting him up for next year. So like it's like competitive or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, did you listen to Dr. Wendy Mogul on the show?
Yes, I did. Oh my gosh. And I have a background in psychology and let's see, art therapy, and I worked with children. So that, all that stuff is just so fascinating to me. I can't decide what I like more, the experts on experts or, the celebrities.
You don't have to pick.
Yeah, that's
We're
the
gonna-
beauty.
I know.
We'll give you both of them.
I was at your Brooklyn show.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, but
one.
I didn't have a good enough seat, so you couldn't see my sign.
Oh.
My
Aw.
sign said, I love it when Dax mispronounces words.
Well, then you must be happy often because I mispronounce like every fifth word.
Yeah. Well, and then Dax, my husband and I met you when you came to New York for Brothers Justice. However, was that like 8 years ago?
Oh my God,
Wow.
probably even more. What at the screening?
Yeah.
The screening we had.
Yes, and like we got to like talk to you and hug you, and
Oh.
it was really cool. Like I think that's when my crush on you started, actually. So
Oh, this is
wow.
wonderful! Wow,
Yeah.
we have history.
yeah, but I was so upset after the Brooklyn show. I wanted to meet Monica because I was like, oh my gosh,
Oh, I would have
But,
loved that.
I know, but my husband was tired and it was late. And we had a long day, so whatever.
Husbands.
No husbands.
Yeah.
Well, you can't live with them and you can't kill them. That's what they say.
Right.
Well, listen, we really, really appreciate your generosity. And of course, we would like to pay your generosity forward. And is there a foundation or a charity that you believe in that we could forward your money to?
So have you heard of Modest Needs?
No.
No.
Tell us about Modest
Okay.
Needs.
We can find it at modestneeds.org. It helps prevent people from falling into a cycle of poverty when they just need like a financial boost, if falling on hard times. It could be a single mom needing a car repair. It could be an unexpected injury or illness that's left someone unable to pay their rent. Anyway, these people go to this website, and the people have been vetted, and the money that you donate goes directly to pay the electric company or the auto repair.
Yeah, and I think what people might not understand about this issue, right, is that sometimes, well, they say, I've read statistics like of what percentage of Americans are basically one paycheck away from falling into poverty, and how it can be a self-perpetuating. So, if you can't make that car repair, now you lose your job, and now the burden on everyone gets infinitely higher.
Yes.
It's a good investment, yeah?
Yes. And, it's just really cool. You can go in there and search, and you can see which ones are running out soon. You're like, oh my gosh, this person only has 1 week to raise this much money.
Yeah.
And you can swoop in and save the day for some people.
Well, that's fantastic.
great.
We'll be happy to send your money there. We thank you so much for donating to us. And again, I would implore you to clone Monica. Her DNA is on the mug.
Yes.
Everyone needs a
It
Monica.
was.
One of us. You'll get one of us when you take it to the lab.
Oh, it'll be a surprise.
Exactly.
Could even be
Surprises.
a mashup between us, like a
Ooh.
6'3",
Goodness.
6'3" Monica. Well, Cecilia, thank you so much.
All right. Love you guys.
All right, thanks, Cecilia. And now my favorite part of the show, the fact check with my soulmate, Monica Padman. Rolling on a fact check and we're gonna check facts. Rolling on a fact check too. That was just Wobby Wob who said rolling on fact check. And that came out.
Yeah. All right. Sophia.
So, Fia.
All right. So she was talking about her stunt coordinator that got her into doing stunts, and his name is Michael Owen. And she was like, I think he maybe did stunts on The Italian Job. He did do stunts on The Italian Job. And you know what else he did stunts on?
Chips.
Correct.
He did.
He did. I thought that was funny when I
That
saw
is
that.
funny.
'Cause you
What's
didn't-
his name?
Michael Owen.
Michael Owen. Huh. I'm going to have to ask DeCastro who he was.
Yeah, he did stunts on Chips.
I mean, I knew my motorcycle team really well for obvious reasons,
Sure.
but I don't know if I got everyone's name in these like broader, bigger scenes with people running and falling down stairs and stuff,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
exciting.
he was in your movie.
That's great.
And I was just noting his name is Michael Owen, which is very hard because you want to say Michael Owens. It's like O'Reilly's and Crystals.
And
It's
Kmart's.
very hard. Yeah, and Burger King's. It's very hard to not put an S on Owen.
Should we invite people into this thing that's going on with you and I in Burger King?
Sure.
So it turns out we discovered about 3 months ago that Monica and I in our youth loved that Burger King chicken sandwich. That's a rectangle.
Yeah, it's a rectangle.
And I always got mine with extra mayonnaise. Did you get heavy mayonnaise on
I got
yours?
mayonnaise and ketchup.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Ooh,
it made
weird.
such a tasty mix. Ugh, I can taste it in my mouth right now.
Me too. I always got extra mayonnaise, and it was thick. It was almost as thick as the chicken rectangle itself. And their mayonnaise, when warm, is very special.
Ugh.
It's very oily. It's
Yeah.
really good. So we figured this out a few months ago, and then on my ride to the attic from Netflix, there is a Burger King, and I almost pulled in like 5 times to get us those rectangles.
Yeah.
But then we've since decided, is it better in our memory? Is it going to let us down?
Yeah, I'm worried about that.
Have we aged out of that tasty rectangle?
I think we might have.
So we can't really decide if we should do it or not do it. That's the question. And maybe we need to post a survey
Sure.
and just be guided by the better wisdom of the collective genius of armchairs.
Yeah.
I want to add something else.
Okay.
I got my first personalized license plate.
Oh, yeah.
I've never gotten a personalized license plate. Generally, I hate them. But I wanted in California, you can order these black, they're retro plates, and they're black with yellow writing. In my Lincoln Continental, the theme is black and gold. So I needed to get a black and yellow license plate to match.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, shit, if I'm going to order that, maybe it's time to go vanity plate. And then I threw up. But then when I got over it, I thought only if I can think of the very perfect vanity plate. And Monica, do you know what I'm getting?
I do.
Armchair.
I know.
My new vanity plate is going to say Armchair on my Lincoln. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Should we say how you're spelling it? How you're doing it?
Yeah. ARMCHRY. In case you're on the street,
Yeah.
you see it. It's
If
either
the
Monica
Lincoln-
or I.
If the Lincoln isn't an
Obvious.
indicator enough that it's you.
Yeah, with the enormous gold wheels on it. It's
Yeah.
so obnoxious in the best way.
It's a flashy car.
It is. It's opulent and ostentatious.
And rare.
and rare and rarefied. Can I add one more thing before we get into Sophia?
Sure, you can add a million
Because I've been
things.
meaning to bring this up, but I didn't know when or how. But then it kind of came up when I did Chris Hardwick's podcast this week. And I was thinking, I would like to share that on our podcast. And what happened was I had a share at my AA meeting that I didn't think a ton about. But then the following week, someone in their share brought up that it had really resonated with them. And then a couple other people really agreed with that. And then I started thinking, well, if that kind of resonated with these gentlemen, maybe I should share it. And it's just very simple and stupid. It is occasionally I have a conversation with myself where it's always while beating myself up, which is my great hobby.
Sure.
It's my main hobby is really being mean to myself, kind of yelling at myself inside my mind about how I'm failing in all these ways and I'm a piece of shit. And occasionally when I'm in one of these spirals, I think to myself, would you ever talk to a stranger the way you're talking to yourself? Mm-hmm. Would you ever, if you knew a guy in AA and he came up to you and he said, I did X, Y, and Z, some indiscretion, would I say, yeah, it's because you're a fucking piece of shit and a terrible person? I would never do that to somebody. I would never treat a stranger the way I treat myself.
Right.
So I try to have this new program where it's like, minimally I should treat myself as nice as I would treat a stranger.
Yeah.
I deserve that.
Yeah. That's a good motto.
It's helped a bit.
Good.
Yeah. So I don't know, just a tip if you're hard on yourself to think about treating yourself the way you treat other people.
I like
This is
that.
kind of a reverse because normally you're supposed to say treat others as you'd want to be treated. But I'm asking you to treat yourself the way you treat others. It's the
I guess
opposite.
it depends on how you treat others.
That's true.
Yeah.
If you're raping and murdering them, still go ahead and rape and murder yourself.
Yeah, you should be.
Yeah, so I think it still
Oh,
holds.
okay.
Yeah, it could self-regulate.
That's true. Yeah, I think that's great. My only thought on that is I definitely think no one should be beating themselves up. I don't think that's helpful. But as you said to me yesterday, that I think you used the word miserable, but that sometimes it takes feeling those ways to change and to be critical of yourself in a way that's helpful, which you're not going to be critical of a stranger because you don't care. There's no investment.
Well, no, because you could be truly invested in a friendship where you want to help someone work through the thing that they're dealing with, and you want to provide a constructive suggestion that could be a pathway out of that behavior or a suggestion on how to prevent it from happening again. But all those things would be done from a constructive, pragmatic point of view. It wouldn't
Definitely.
be in a shaming, self-hatred way or a
Yeah.
hatred way, you know.
It shouldn't be, no.
The shame and just this shaming that we give ourselves is maybe a little rough.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But the thing I was saying to you, and this is something that's, again, common, this isn't my thought, which is I think a lot of us in AA feel very fortunate that the thing we had was the stakes were so high that literally death was an option if we didn't change. Mm-hmm. I think it's just so hard to change as a human being. I think it's the hardest thing you can do is like change at your core who you are. And I'm sympathetic to people who the only result of their character defects or their bad habits is just generalized discomfort, because most people can tolerate generalized discomfort and they can maybe tolerate it their whole life.
Yeah.
But you really can't tolerate a condition that'll kill you and kills many of your peers without really fundamental change. And it ends up being a weird thing I'm grateful for that I had
Yeah.
such a life-threatening thing that could have changed me, because I don't know what else would have.
Yeah. That's true. Okay. Oh, she was looking for a actor in her brain. She was talking about Nip Tuck, and she said Jolie Richardson's husband on the show, and that is John Hensley. Now, I guess I don't know for sure that it's John Hensley because I never watched Nip Tuck. So I had to go on IMDb and look at the character name and match the last name.
Right.
So I assume that it's John Hensley because Jolie Richardson played Julie McNamara And John Hensley played Matt McNamara. Now, they could be brother and sister. I don't know. I don't watch Nip Tuck.
I did, and I believe that's their character names.
Okay, great.
I loved Nip Tuck.
Yeah, I never watched it.
I wonder if it would hold up, but it was one of the first cable shows that was naughty.
Yeah, Ryan Murphy.
Yep, Brian Murphy.
Ryan
His
Murphy.
first hit.
Man,
He's a productive son of a gun.
he really is. We should get him on here.
Okay.
I'm curious. All right. So she said 2 of our favorite words back to back. She said untenable. And then Sisyphean.
Oh, Sisyphean.
I say Sisyphean because I think it makes the most sense and it also helps people know what it means.
Because his name was Sisyphus?
But the actual word is not Sisyphean. It's Sisyphean.
Oh, that's too hard for me.
It's hard to say, and it makes less sense than mine.
And 96% of the people that you say that word to don't know what it means, so there's no way they would correct you. So we're just playing a numbers game.
That's
just keep
true.
rolling with
and
it.
I like it. I mean, I hate to know a fact and ignore it. I don't like that.
The implications of that. But I don't think anyone is harmed by hearing the word mispronounced, although some people act like it's, sacrilege.
I know.
Or a great offense.
I know.
Those people should not hang out with me. Get about 12%
Oh,
of the
yeah.
words I say wrong.
Speaking of that,
Great transition.
yeah, a lot of people noted in Debbie's episode that you pronounce sauna in a very strange way. And
Sauna.
exactly. And I also noted that, but for some reason it got taken off of my fact check and I forgot to say it.
Because Randy Hammond, my girlfriend in 7th and 8th grade. Oh, I love Randy Hammond. She's so cute. So fun. She's a great track athlete. We were both high jumpers, and we go to track meets together, and we'd high jump.
Cute.
And her stepfather was Swedish, and they had a sauna in the basement, and they called it a sauna.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I had called it a sauna.
Sure. Like the rest of us.
Yeah, but I do believe the Swedes, the Norwegians, the Finnish, these people who love their saunas, and I do believe invented the sauna,
Yeah.
they call it a sauna. And so I'm just trying to be respectful to the creators of the product.
But I kind of like it.
It's fun, right? It wakes you up.
Well, it woke me up big time because
Yeah,
I
'cause-
didn't know what you were saying. And then you said it a couple more times. And by the end, I understood.
Right. It's like if someone was telling you about going to the park and sitting at a picnic table, and they say picnic. You would just be so much more interested in their story and hoping that they would keep saying picnic table and a picnic basket and a picnic blanket.
Yeah.
For me, I would love it.
Yeah.
So, I guess you're welcome. If you're out there, Randy Hamina, still using the words you taught me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She really made an impact.
She's so pretty. Just beautiful. And she was always blue ribboning in that high jump. And she wasn't inordinately tall either. This bitch had hops.
I bet she had elite muscle mass like me.
Oh, there's no question she had that elite muscle mass. I've told you too about her mom was so beautiful. I was very in love with her mom too at like 14 years old. And I'd go over to see Randy and I would talk to her mother in the kitchen about appliances for sometimes up over an hour.
Appliances.
Yeah, I was very into appliances when I was, I still am very into them. I've always been into appliances.
I'm not concerned that you were into them. It's a little strange that.
No, a mother who's decorating a kitchen or picking out appliances for a kitchen, you don't think she should be hip to them?
I don't think to talk about appliances for an hour with a 14-year-old
14-year-old?
boy
Well,
is.
They lived in the country and,
Is she wearing a robe?
I wish. Oh, do I wish. I had a crush on her mom as well. And anyways, I would talk to her about appliances all the time or anything I could think of to talk to her about. Didn't get a lot of FaceTime with the dad. Although I did go one time to a restaurant with them as a whole family, to the Boneyard barbecue restaurant.
Oh.
On,
That's the end of that story?
No, I just got really sad that I'm starting to forget the names of some of the roads in my hometown. It's right by Northwestern Highway and another Orchard Lake Road. It was on Orchard Lake Road. That was starting to scare me.
I know you started to get really upset over there.
I got emotional. Boneyard on Orchard Lake Road. I went with the Hamanas. I hope she doesn't feel violated by any of the stuff I just said. Does it all seem positive?
Well, that you fucked her mom?
No. I didn't have any contact physically with the mom. I just thought she was really pretty and nice. And I loved talking to her about ranges and refrigerators and trash compactors.
And her boobs.
No. Don't try to sully this. Very innocent,
Okay.
wonderful.
Okay, I got to talk about something.
Okay.
She said that she did a movie that had a very normal name, and then it turned into that she said sounded like a porn name.
Okay.
So then I've looked through her IMDb, and I don't know what she's talking about.
What she thinks sounds like a porn name.
I think, this is what I think. I think she thinks learning curves.
Learning curves.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's creepy.
You do
Don't
think
put an
so?
S at the end of it.
Yeah,
learning curve is a thing.
Learning curves.
A learning curve.
Like
but
Michael
learning
Owens.
curves is now the shape of a body. Curves are a specific thing. It's what a female has with that
That's the-
hourglass shape.
Exactly. Curvy.
Voluptuous.
That's right.
You know, the word that always boggles me is buxomy. What the fuck is that word? Buxomy with an X in it. And do you say buxomy?
I've never said it.
Well, yeah, because it's intimidating, right?
What does it mean?
It means big boobs. Yeah, she was very buxomy. It's like a PG word way to say someone's got fat naturals.
Well, I don't like any of these phrases. I told you that. I don't like fat natchies.
I know you don't. I love it.
I know you love it because
Fat naturals. Did I say that or did I go straight to fat natchies? Because that I thought was what was triggering you.
No, I don't
Think
like
of it
the
as
fat portion.
No, think of it as PHAT.
No,
Like
that's not
like
what
a
it means.
Fat ass.
That's not what it means. You know that's not what it means.
Who would know what it means? The person who introduced you to it or the person who heard it?
You think
that's the same person? Okay, but I'm the one who told you.
Well, you didn't make it up.
Fat natchies. I did not make it up.
So-
No, two other friends of mine introduced me to it, and
Yeah.
I loved it. Fat
Okay.
naturals.
Yeah, and you really think that the intent of that word "fat" is PHAT?
Yes, I can tell you, regardless of what you think about it, that the two gentlemen that introduced me to the term, and then me too, it is a great compliment.
I know that it's a compliment. I'm not saying that you don't think it's a compliment, but you know that the word "fat" in that phrase is not referring to PHAT.
It is like if you were to say, "Oh, she had this just big fat ass and fat titties," that is, you're saying you are in. You're excited by that.
I know we're talking about two different things. I'm not saying you aren't excited, but you're talking about actual fat.
Well, literally, I think that's what's in titties.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You are talking
So
about
how could that
fat.
be derogatory?
Because nobody wants to be associated with anything FAT.
Au contraire, mon frere. Remember when Joy was in here and she said she was completely insecure in her neighborhood in the Bronx, that she didn't have a fat ass, that was very much desired.
Okay.
If someone said you have a fat dick, I'm in. Thank you. That's great.
You want someone
I
to
don't
say-
think that someone's saying my penis has a beer belly attached to it.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I don't like it.
Okay, well, I will never, ever describe your breasts as fat naturals.
Great.
But at gunpoint, I'm forced to describe who has the keys. Monica does. Who's Monica? My friend. What does she look like? And then by gunpoint, they force me to describe exactly what you look like. What do you want me to say?
I guess buxomy.
Buxomy?
I guess.
Okay. 4'11", buxomy, pussy boots,
Does it mean
eyes.
buxomus?
Buximus Maximus? If you were a ruler in Greece, they would have called you Buximus Maximus. And also, just for the record, if asked to describe you, I would go on and on about your intellect and your great personality and how responsible and competent you are. It'd be a long time before I got to your faturals.
I think it would be third. So this is also interesting because I don't have that body issue.
Which one?
Feeling like
fat. Yes. No.
I don't have that at all.
No, not at all.
So
You've been blessed with a great metabolism and moderation in eating.
I have a small frame, and
But you don't have to be like bonkers about your diet in order to stay in the shape you're in.
correct.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, but it's just interesting because that's
Privilege.
it's a privilege for sure.
Yeah.
But it is not an issue that I have, but I still am triggered by that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So to me, that's like how embedded it is in society that girls should be skinny.
Yeah.
Oh, so I think it was learning curves. is the
Learning
form.
curves for sure. And what was learning curves about?
Brad, an art student hoping to win a prestigious fellowship, finds his life and career turned upside down when he falls for a faculty member at his college.
You would love this movie because it's about a professor and student love affair.
I would love it. I'm going to watch it over the holiday.
Okay, I just have one last test for you. You don't like the term fat naturals,
Correct.
but let's just say that you intercepted a message from your professor on a piece of paper.
Eric Covington.
Eric was forced to describe you to another professor,
Okay.
and he added fat naturals into that description. Would you not be excited that he was just aware of your factualness?
He would never use that phrase.
I know he wouldn't. Of course not. And he wouldn't be sliding a piece of paper to any other professor to describe you. I'm just saying, you become aware of the fact that Eric Primstein or
Covington. Oh, no. This is Gene Cordell all over again.
Well, by the way, Covington I should remember because that was previous to MeUndies. Covington was my panty of choice. And that's back when I wore a boxer panty, an old-fashioned boxer panty. And you could only get Coveys. I called them Coveys instead of Covingtons.
Sure.
You could only get me Coveys at Sears.
Sears?
Exactly. It's one of the most blue-collar things in my life at that time was that I'd have to go down to Sears to get a 3-pack of Coveys.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'd wear them into the ground, those Coveys.
Well, I wonder if if it's his family.
If he's heir to the Covington panty fortune?
I wouldn't be surprised.
No, he's so regal. Mr. Covey.
I called him Eric.
You did?
He told us to.
You were
He
trying.
was hot. He
Were
was
you
young and hot.
What's the most brazen signal you sent him?
I wrote him an email.
Oh, good. Here we go. Oh, my God. Yes. Yes. I did not
No.
see this coming.
It was not sexual or anything. It
We'll
was
see.
just
You tell me the email, and I'll tell you how sexual it was.
I don't remember. It was on my. I don't have it anymore. Thank God.
Was it an email just telling him, like, how much he changed your life and
Yeah,
stuff?
It was.
It was?
Yeah.
Can you-
Not that he changed my life.
Can you remember any of it?
You know, I used to do that. I used to like really have a pattern of doing that with people.
Like telling them how much they impacted you?
Yes, via the written word.
Would you be a little buzzed when you'd write these emails?
Never.
Okay.
No.
All right.
No, I was just like waiting to send him that.
And
no,
what-
oh my God, and waiting for the response.
How did he respond? He was probably so nervous.
I-
This semester has been so eye-opening, and I thank you for broadening my horizons.
Something
You're-
like that.
Did you say anything like you
Fat
have a real
Nat.
special?
And then I signed off
Fat
Monica.
Natchies? Monica
Fat Natchies
Fadman?
Fadman.
But
Yeah.
did you say? Did you? I have to imagine you said something like, "You really have a special gift," or
I
something.
probably did say something like
Right.
that.
And
yeah.
then what was his response? You must remember that word for word.
Weirdly, I don't. That's sad. I should be emotional about that. Like you were emotional about the street you couldn't remember. I can't remember what he said. I remember being happy with it. In my head, I feel it was the end. It was the end of the year. Mm-hmm. I probably said something like, "I know you don't know me. There's no way you know me, but I'm in this period and whatever." And then I think he responded in a way that let me know that he did know me.
Yeah, he did.
And I liked that.
What if you had written to him, Dr. Covington, I often go through 3 Me Coveys during one of your lectures.
I should have. I should have.
I run through Me Coveys
Big
faster
missed
than...
opportunity.
All right, well, I love you. I'm jealous of Miss Dr. Covington, and I hope everyone has a great holiday season this year.